He said we're good. So, said we're good.
We're good? Okay, good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, August 14th, 2025. The time is 10:07 a.m. and I'm calling the Mount Vernon Industrial Development Agency regular meeting, monthly meeting into order. Can we please do the roll?
Yes, Chairman Sean Patterson Howard,
Here?
Member Vanderpool,
Here.
Member Johnson,
Here,
Member Morton, I think is en route,
En route?
not here yet, and Member McDonough.
present.
So the first matter on the agenda is the approval of the July 10th, 2025 minutes. As the board had a chance to review them.
Can we table those? Cause I have to abstain because I wasn't here.
Sure, yeah, we only have two members here then, so yes, we can table that to the next meeting
Or
Or
until
till-
Morton gets here, so.
or until Dr. Morning. Okay, we'll revisit. The financial report, I know Dr. Morton's not here, maybe wait for him to do that also, or we can, Julie, I don't know if you have the ability to go through it quickly with the board.
We didn't receive a financial report. I know Raj has been out for some time. So I don't know if Dr. Morton had the ability for other staff members to quote a report.
Okay. Okay, next would be the business development report. Executive Director Mack is out of town today. I did speak with her,
Oh, okay.
but go ahead, if you may have more information, Mayor, than I do.
So Director Mack is on vacation, which, everyone should have one. We don't do it often enough. She is reporting for July that through August 14th that we have 4 new businesses, and that there have been some requests for grants. We have Fun City coming in, Floor and Decor are in the final processes of their permitting. I believe it just passed the ARB. And so the planning department will give the final approval on that site plan. The demolition of the Salvation Army is almost complete, and we know it'll take about another 2 weeks for a full removal of the items from that area, from the construction debris. 229 South 4th Avenue, we had an unauthorized tenant who was there, who had also allowed, an unauthorized tenant who went even as far as to rent out, sublease kind of the yard area where we had torn down the building and had an 18-wheeler on that property. There were other old trucks that were left there that remained from the last property renter. And so we had all of that area cleared and removed. And they are finalizing, hold on, let me get my thing timed out. It doesn't give you a lot of time anymore. So that area has been cleared. We have some conceptual drawings that are in process for the ESU, Emergency Services Unit building that is also on South 4th Avenue. Insofar as the cannabis businesses, we've given 2 non-compliance warnings. And we have cannabis businesses that have applied to the state to be in Mount Vernon. We are still working with the city council and our law department and external attorney around putting a limit on cannabis businesses that can be in our city, because we don't want to be overwhelmed by cannabis businesses in our city. I can tell you that the initial legislation was written to not really give localities a major say in cannabis businesses. It's kind of like, our local home rule is not supported insofar as zoning. You couldn't put anything up around a specific zone for cannabis businesses. You couldn't put them through the land use process that held up or deterred their ability to be able to open, as long as they were falling within the guidelines of being a certain distance from this business or this school. Then the city could not really push back. We have expressed as leaders in this city, that while we are not, we are supportive of the cannabis industry. We know it's an industry and it can bring jobs, it can bring tax revenue, but we're also supportive of our residents who have been justice involved, getting priority in our community. When you talk about the cannabis business and the priority and the initial licenses being given to individuals who are justice involved, individuals who hurt the community, who now want to come back and bring jobs and legal cannabis industry to the community. I get that, and I'm fully supportive of that, right? But I'd rather give it to people who hurt our community, not the Bronx, not Brooklyn, not North Carolina, or anything like that. If if you lived here and you did your dirt here, and now you're getting a license, that's a preference, right? And clearly, Mountain Vernon has more than our fair share of businesses that have tobacco licenses. We have more than our fair share of SLA licenses, and we don't need more than our fair share of cannabis licenses in our community as and if we talk about health and health equity and outcomes, we know that, Black and brown communities and poorer communities are overrepresented in individuals who are addicted to nicotine, who are addicted to vaping, who are addicted to alcohol and things of that nature, and who have been illegal cannabis users. So we're not looking to help our economy locally recover on the back of the cannabis industry as well, right? We understand. So there needs to be a balanced nature, and we have been having conversations and looking at putting, I don't want to say moratoriums, but numbers based on our population and our square miles of how many SLAs, how many tobacco, and how many cannabis industries and licenses we really want to recognize in our community. So, that's that with that, but I wanted to kind of give a little bit more of a background as to what is happening with cannabis. Insofar as new revenue to Mount Vernon, Director Mack has been working hotel occupancy tax, the short-term occupancy tax, I guess for Airbnbs, short-term occupancy renewal inspections, business registrations, and of course, the non-compliance fees for cannabis. Business development for national brands. She has been having conversations with Walmart, Wegmans, Boot Barn, REI Sporting Goods, Abercrombie and Fitch, Cheddar Scratch Kitchen, Barnes and Noble, and indoor pickleball courts. And of course, some of the potential projects that are before the IDA right now are the Sentinel Penrose Mixed Use Development Project and the Heritage House, South Fun City Petco, TJ Maxx, Famous Footwear, pilot application. And future event, she's looking to have another business to business lunch and learn, which was popular the last time we did it in the early spring. And of course, preparing for the holidays at the end of this year, and working with American Christmas, who is, I guess, the largest Christmas decorator in the world, to do the best dress Mount Vernon. So new businesses, there is a new Nigerian takeout restaurant on Gramerton Avenue. There is a soul food restaurant on South Street, between West Street and Pearl Street. There is a sports bar on Gramerton Avenue between Sydney and Prospect. There is a coffee shop on South Third Avenue at East Second Street. And they've been working with several existing businesses to get some small business loans through Hello Alice, Kiva, Valley National Bank, New York State Empire Development Corporation, Hebrew Free Loan Society, and Pursuit. Just make sure. A long report. I think I've kind of gone over. And I also know that she is working with our Office of Sustainability in moving forward the Con Edison application for us to be the first in New York State U10 district geothermal energy network. That application was submitted in July, and hopefully we will find out soon what is happening with that. And we are preparing for the Restore New York Communities grant in partnership with IDA and URA and the planning department. Yeah. And then another thing is we do have a church that has purchased a property, the old funeral home on, is that Broad Street? Broad Street. We are looking into the zoning for that. And if that is properly zoned use of that property. I do not believe they've begun having services. We have reached out on several occasions, and I believe they just met with the building department. They're looking to have their church there as well as a daycare center. But we're having conversations and we've received the concerns from the residents. And of course, you know, we're always concerned about properties coming off the tax rolls, right?
Yes.
And tax-paying properties coming, huh?
I was wondering what was going on one day I drove by. I saw
Yeah, I
a
mean,
different
so,
group of people than I
you know,
would normally
clearly-
expect. I was like, what the fuck?
clearly, there has been, you know, signage put up. The city, the building department has gone on quite a few occasions to try and meet and talk to or see what was going on, issue a stop work order notice. As I said, they finally met with the pastor earlier this week, I believe. So,
They didn't know that you had to, you needed to make sure it probably was properly zoned.
well, you know, so in Mount Vernon, historically, no one's done anything proper, right? We know that 70% of our businesses don't have certificates of occupancy, right? So people just haven't followed the rules, and the rules haven't been enforced in Mount Vernon for at least 3 to 4 decades. And we only know 3 to 4 decades because that's when we have digital records. We can't even say if they were being followed before that. One of the other challenges that we're having, and we've talked before about putting kind of moratoriums together on certain places. And the IDA did submit several years ago to the council for approval, and it was denied, suggesting a moratorium on storefront churches, a moratorium on beauty salons, nail parlors, hair braiding places, tattoo parlors, these personal care businesses, which do not pay taxes. They do not charge sales tax because they are personal care businesses. And so when you have an over inundation of these types of businesses in your retail areas and your business districts, and we have to service them, right? This is nothing against businesses or any types of businesses, but when you're over inundated, eventually these businesses are not going to make money. Secondly, we're having to provide services without the benefit of sales tax revenue, right? So the city is providing services without being paid any money. We're getting the taxes off of the property, but we're not getting the sales tax revenue from the businesses. And so I know the IDA will be putting that forward again. And hopefully there will be a greater consideration. Before the question was, well, you don't want empty storefronts. Well, you also don't want businesses that you have to serve on a regular basis who are providing no tax benefit and no employment benefit to the city of Mount Vernon. Because when you look at a lot of these businesses, they transferred here from New York City, the Bronx in particular, because in the Bronx, the government has now allowed New York City to for sales tax, that these businesses now have to pay sales tax in New York City.
Personal cares.
Personal care businesses. And so those personal care businesses have done what is very easy. And because we border the Bronx, we border the largest metropolitan area, first ring suburb of the largest metropolitan area in the country, who always gets rule changes before any local community can get those rule changes. And so we get dumped on, respectfully, and I'm going to use that word, dump on. So the businesses that can no longer be there want to come here, and it just drains our community of resources. Yes, I love getting my hair done, and I got my nails done yesterday, and I'll get my hair done today, and I'll get my hair braided tomorrow.
It looks nice.
Right? Thank you. It needs to be done. But it again, when you're bringing a van load of people in, all to work in your salon, not one job is being created in this community, and we're not receiving sales tax. So we look good, but we're not receiving any financial benefit. Right, we're not receiving, but our roads don't look good and our services decline. And so these are the things that we have to look at. Empty stores is one thing, but empty stores working to recruit the right businesses is one thing. Full stores of the businesses that are not paying their fair share to our community is not the way to go. And so we have to, hopefully before the end of this year, put an end to that, because they will continue to come. And if we don't have some restrictions that we're putting on these property owners, the property owners themselves could care less who's in their business as long as they're getting rent. And so far too often, property owners have not been partners with the city. As much as you try and get them to be partners with the city, and they're not necessarily partners. And so until we put some type of legislation in place that regulates the businesses that can be and can't be. And now on Gramerton Avenue, you're seeing storefront churches pop up. Now, I'm a minister and I love a good church. But if that now also means that you can't have restaurants who have an SLA license, or you can't, then what are we doing to our business districts? So we need to do something to really regulate.
So I agree. I mean, I think that, yeah, definitely looked at. I think that it has to be a very coordinated effort. I think it also has to be very comprehensive. So it's my concern is, and I was not an advocate for it, putting taxes on personal cares, because I just didn't see all. My concern is that given the number of our people who actually do take advantage of those, is that if we put taxes on those and those go up, and those businesses will actually lose the community. Leaving the community, then to me, it's also to people that are in the community and which means that they may very well go someplace else, and other places are not doing that. So I think that I would like for us to make sure that if we want to push it forward, and I'm saying not to, right? I'm just saying, I think that we also need to do this kind of a complete kind of analysis on what that effect of it may very well be. Because it's a balancing act of, right, trying to get also, hold them accountable, know who's here, make sure that you receive appropriate taxes, sales taxes on things that also making sure that the services are also here and people feel as if they can get services that they only get in their community as a whole, right? And that would be my major concern, particularly with that particular thing. As it pertains to things like zoning and churches and all of that, I agree. I think that we gotta now look at it and say, where's it appropriate for these things to be? And that probably will fall in line with, what we're already doing with the comprehensive plan to make sure how we want our community to look, right? And what's the field, what's the kind of footprint for downtown versus what is on that, Where is it the bedroom community? Where is it the industrial community? All of that, how it all comes together. Yeah. So it all kind of comes into play on it. And and again, right. It's particularly with things like not-for-profits, and I want to make sure that, well, I say it this way, they're not-for-profits, which is inclusive of churches, because oftentimes, and I'm a pastor, and oftentimes churches get beat up because everybody focuses on the fact that it's the religious institutions, but just not-for-profits. Same not tax that churches are not paying, the same not tax that not-for-profits are not paying, and in the community itself. And so when the city moved to do the refuge fee, right, on that, and it was such a pushback and by some of even my own colleagues and I was like, what are you talking about? The reality of it is that if we can pay the county for sewer and for refuge, we not be able to pay our own city, right? For especially given the fact that not-for-profits, right, are not paying actually property tax because of the nature of what they're supposed to be doing for the community. So I get this. I support not-for-profits not necessarily having to be taxed or not be taxed fully on what it is, but I also support the fact that we also got to make sure that we also do provide for the services that are being rendered by the city, so that again, all of that doesn't get just tossed off onto the homeowners as to them footing the bill for it. So there's a balancing act on it. But I think that, a real assertive, comprehensive kind of view of this very quickly to get all of that, to say, here's the right balance of that. And looking at other communities and seeing what the best practices are is absolutely, I think, what we should be doing. So I'm supportive of it. I just think.
Absolutely. And to everything, there has to be balance. And so, what I will do is I will speak to Director Mack and maybe even work with some of our interns and pull together a group, because it's all about mapping. And I can guarantee you that between the corner of 3rd Street and 4th Avenue through Gramerton Avenue and Broad Street, that there are no less than probably 30 hairdressers, barbershops, nail salons, and African braiding hair shops in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-block area. And guess what? Putting tax on them is not the only thing that will cause them to leave. Them not having enough customers to satisfy that number of, competition is good, but McDonald's even knows not to put 5 McDonald's in one community, regardless of how many people eat McDonald's. And so, people are coming into the community, and if we just allow an explosion of all of the same types of businesses, there's competition, but after a while, there becomes market saturation. Those businesses are not going to make money, and they're just going to continue to rotate in and out, and it's going to continue to destabilize what should be a business district. So, definitely, and we will get on that mapping so that we could bring more information back to this body, as well as when we move a referral letter forward to the council, that they can also have that information. Business is important, but the right businesses that are also paying taxes and contributing to our economic base, and not just our good looks, is important.
A question about the cannabis. So in the last decade, since cannabis has become legal, there's been an explosion in cannabis poisonings in children. And part of what's been implicated in that is the packaging, the marketing. So a lot of it is marketed as gummies in packages that look very much like candy. And so then parents have that at home, kids get into it. As far as Mount Vernon goes and enforcement goes, I know that your hands are kind of tied because of the way the law was written, but are you aware of anyone at the state level who's looking at this problem? Because it really worries me here in Mount Vernon, because as communities around us have opted out, it creates a funneling effect. So more cannabis will be driven into the ones that opted in. Oh, do we have any power to go to these establishments and say, hey, please, can you not market this so that kids are gonna get their hands on it?
So I don't think it's really about, because what's interesting is in Mount Vernon, we have villainized the cannabis industry. In New Rochelle and in White Plains and in Yonkers, where they have more cannabis stores than we do, their communities have not received it with the same thing. Parents have to be parents. I'm sorry. And my bottom, I'm a social worker. I'm an addictions counselor, and I've done this work for 30 years before becoming mayor. And whether it's been the legal cannabis industry or the illegal cannabis industry or alcohol, parents have to be parents. And we keep expecting government to do the job of parents. And if anybody is going to sit there and do that regulation, it's not just going to be the cannabis industry. I agree there should be something around marketing, just like we did
With tobacco.
around marketing with tobacco, right? That is what I wrote my dissertation on in graduate school for my MPA.
Yeah, so that's my question. Is anything being done?
So
around
the state,
marketing to
we've
children?
said those, we've given those questions to the state. We can go back and speak to our state representatives, Senator Bailey and Assemblyman Pretlow, and continue to express those things to the Office of Cannabis Management. But at the same time, I think that legally, that just like we say, parents allowing their kids to get hold of their guns should be held responsible. Parents are leaving out their legal drugs or their illegal drugs, then those should be cases that are referred to CPS and things of that nature. People have to be parents, period. And if you are allowing your children to gain access to your drugs in the house, there's a problem. But oftentimes what you're talking about being poisoning of children is not coming from the legal cannabis stores. There is still a very large traditional cannabis
Well, according
market.
to the CDC, I think it is related to the legalization of recreational cannabis. If you go, and the only explanation is if you look at the relationship between the change in
We're
the number of
talking
kids getting poisoned.
States in our state, because we saw an increase in poisoning in our kids before it was legalized in the state.
And it's due to the packaging, the way things are being packaged.
But if it wasn't legal, it was not being sold in stores, it was being sold on the street.
The legalization has exacerbated the problem
I wouldn't doubt. I wouldn't disagree, right?
because of the way it's marketed.
So these are things that we have spoken to the state and cannabis management about, right? But that's something that they have to catch up on. We don't get to make that law on this level. But I think at the same time, while the state is working out that law, I think that the district attorneys and the AGs and Office of Children and Family Services need to be having conversations about what penalties will be against parents whose children are accessing their legal and or illegal drugs in their house. It has to be an air, land, and sea approach. No one entity can hold all of the responsibility for what has become a social decline. There's just been social decline. And you're a school board trustee. That's like saying the kids are failing because the schools are bad. The schools are failing because parents aren't teaching their kids and aren't making them do homework also. There's a combination. So
Correct.
no one entity holds all of the responsibility.
Right. My
Right.
question is regarding the role of the people who created the market, right?
Right,
And their ability to regulate how it's marketed to children.
And
That's
we've
really,
been expressing that. We've been expressing that concern as we've expressed it about, cigarettes. The other thing, and I know we're taking a little extra time today, the other thing that we've expressed, is the state's very hard stronghold on the local oversight, right? I can send my police department into a store to do a sting or to do visuals on whether or not stores are selling alcohol and cigarettes to people who are underage. I cannot send our police department into stores to look at packaging. I cannot send my police department into stores and bodegas and smoke shops that are selling what they're not supposed to be selling because they don't have a cannabis license.
Right.
Right? The state has a stronghold on that. And so we can send in a complaint, but because the industry was released before the resources were put in place to be able to fully enforce the rules that they established, it leaves us locally at a disadvantage.
Right.
Because we can walk in the store and see 200 packages of something that should not be sold in that store, and we cannot seize it at that moment. We cannot. We have to wait sometimes weeks and or months for the state to come by there, down and do it. And then, again, whatever fines and all of that stuff are levied, they benefit from. So we pay for the social costs. They benefit from the enforcement of it financially, where we don't, but we have to incur the costs of the social challenges. So I think, again, that there is a lot that can be reformed with the cannabis industry in the state of New York. And I speak with national cannabis organizations, and I speak with my brother and sister mayors in Denver and Tacoma and places on the West Coast that have been in this industry for 10 years and have gone through kind of the life cycle and have made the adjustments. And I take advice from them. So we're going to continue to have those conversations. But I think that finishes the report from Director Mack.
But Mayor, one thing on that report, I know you mentioned 229 South Fourth Avenue.
Mhm.
There's been cleanup there, and there's been notices by the building department, et cetera. Should they not vacate, I'd ask that the board would consider a motion or resolution which would be 8/25-3, to authorize council to take all actions to remove any unauthorized tenants on the place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can take the legal route, but I think like anything else, we have the ability to condemn the property.
Yeah.
Right? That's the simplest way to do it because
Yeah.
there's no electric, there's no water, there's no gas, and you're trying to run in, that's.
Yeah, I think it's been posted already. She wasn't sure I think we spoke on Monday or Tuesday, whether they were out. So just in case, so we have that authority, so we don't have to wait another month.
I guess we
I thought
would have to propose that.
we didn't do that before. I thought we did that in a previous meeting.
I don't know.
Did we authorize the legal team to pursue it?
No, we was gonna follow
We
the.
did, huh?
We had talked to the building department and the fire department about going over there and doing the paperwork that was necessary to condemn the
If we
property.
did it, it would just be another resolution. I just want to make sure we have the authority to do it.
Yeah, absolutely, because posting the notice is still not,
Yeah.
I mean, the notice.
Anyone
Yeah.
make that motion? Member Johnson, is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. We could go back for 1 minute on the minutes. We tabled them, Dr. Morton, because Member Johnson was not here. So the quorum would be Member Vanderpool, the chair, and yourself for the approval of the July 10th, 2025 minutes. There motion to approve? Member Vanderpool, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It passes 3-0 with Member Johnson abstaining because he wasn't here. Next would be resolutions. The first resolution is, now our second, Resolution 8/2025-1, the authorizing the payment of the invoices. I believe they're very small legal invoice and the water invoice as part of the resolution. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
All in favor? Passes 4-0. Next matter is a resolution related to the inducement of Heritage House South LLC and Hickory House South LLC. We have the developer, owner of the property, and their counsel here. Before considering the resolution, we did send over the application for the board to review and a draft resolution of inducement. This is a request for a extension of the existing pilot for the south parcel of the Sanford Boulevard property, which includes the new, soon-to-be open Fun City, the footwear and TJ Maxx and some other stores, but the applicant is here and can present what their request is.
Thank you very much. Mayor, members of the IDA board, I'm joined here today by Jim Sertle, my colleague at Ginsberg Development, and our counsel, Ian Nichols from Cuddy and Fading. We submitted this application for the south portion of Sanford Boulevard, which, as you know, as everybody knows, we took a bit of a hit when Bed Bath and Beyond went out of business and went bankrupt. So we searched and we have a new tenant who's banging out the location right now as we speak. And Director Mack has been working very closely with them and the building department to put them in there. And that is Fun City, where we believe they will be an asset ultimately to the community. But I did want to talk a little bit about their relationship to Sanford Boulevard. And I would ask Jim Sertle to speak a little bit about that and their relationship to TJ Maxx and some of the other tenants.
So the shopping center has been had a good long track record of success for GDC. Unfortunately, until it didn't, when Bed Bath & Beyond went out. And they were the largest tenant on the second floor, which is owned by GDC. The Target store on the ground floor is a separate condominium. And the big box retail market, that doesn't exist as it once did when that project was originally built by G&S Development, a couple decades ago. And Amazon has really wreaked havoc on big box retailers. And we struggled to find someone to occupy the space. During that period, TJ Maxx, in the lease that they negotiated with G&S, had the right to reduce their rent if we were unable to find an acceptable retail tenant within a year, and we could not. And that brought the rent down more than 2/3 it was, and there's nothing we could do about it. Now, once we secured a new retail tenant, it would go up to what it was, but under the lease and under standard real estate practices, a Fun City is not considered a retailer. It's considered destination entertainment, physical fitness, but it's not a retailer. So that meant that TJ Maxx did not have to go back up to their prior rent, and that we had to negotiate a new rent for TJ Maxx, which was half of what they previously had been paying. In addition, Fun City's rent was substantially lower than what Bed Bath & Beyond had been paying. As a result, the property today is worth less than the mortgage that GDC holds on it. And with the, and let me just add that this application that's before you, it was critical for Fun City to move forward to have that kind of predictability in where the taxes would be before they would make the investment. And that is, so that's where we are with the application before you. The extension is necessary for Fun City to move forward, and they've been moving forward in good faith on that. Another development has occurred, though, that we should be aware of, but I believe you are aware of, and that is that GDC has put the property on the market. And the reason for that is that when the financing comes due to renew, GDC would have to make a multiple $1 million pay down on the mortgage in order to refinance. And Martin Ginsberg would prefer not to do that. And the only way out of that would be to sell north and south together. Because Best Buy continues to be as one tenant successful, sale proceeds from Best Buy would offset the sales loss from the South Center, which would enable GDC to get out whole. And JLL has been marketing the property. We have some strong prospects that are interested in the property. But in order for a set transaction to go through, the application before you would need to be approved. And we are going to be coming in with some modification requests for North, for Bed Bath & Beyond. Interestingly,
Best Buy.
for Best Buy, sorry, it's for Best, too many Bs, for Best Buy. And interestingly, the South Center, has a reverter clause in the IDA documents that at the conclusion of the pilot and the grounds, it goes back to the owner of the property. But the North building, the North Center, the Best Buy building, is owned by the city of Mount Vernon, with a long land lease. And the feedback that we received from the potential buyers is that for it to be marketable, that land lease would need to be extended, since the property wouldn't revert following the IDA ownership and pilot, but rather it would just expire, and no one is going to buy the property if the lease expires, too soon. And in the industry, if you don't own property, a 99-year lease is frequently a industry standard for someone who would invest in a property knowing they have a 99-year lease. Now, there already is a substantial years on the lease left now.
There's also a tax benefit to that, to a 99-year lease.
Right. So I believe there's 2 30-year options right now.
Yeah, 2 30-year.
2 30-year options. So the extension we would need to go to 99 is not, we're not looking for new 99 years. We're just going to be coming in for an extension period to bring the total extension periods to 99 years from 2025.
So that's on the north property,
On the north property. That's only for the north.
which is not, there's no application yet on that.
I just wanted to
Expect that.
preview you that is going to be coming in, so you have everything in context.
And the IDA owns that property, at least from the deed I saw.
Yes.
Okay, both of them.
And that development originally happened under an LDA
Correct.
between GNS and the city of Mount Vernon. Then,
And the IDA.
and the IDA. Now it's with the IDA.
Some of this, which we discovered recently when we put the property on sale, was this, as you know, GDC didn't build this. It was purchased by GDC Properties, which is Martin's brother Sam Ginsberg, when they were together. When they decided to divide their assets, GDC inherited it. So we weren't even involved in the original transaction. So we now are fully up to speed with the status of the properties. And we are going to need these modifications, or the properties can't be sold in the market.
Anything to add?
No, it's perfect.
Okay.
So, I mean, I hope no one is expecting us to vote on this today, as we just received the information yesterday.
Right.
And we have not had any opportunity
Right.
to review it and look at the financial impact or the impact on Mount Vernon. You've had an opportunity to get up to speed and to
Yes.
see how it impacts your organization. But we have not had an opportunity to get up to speed to see how it impacts our organization. And just like you don't want to take a hit in the loss, we absolutely cannot afford to take a hit in the loss. So,
You want to hold on the inducement, Mayor?
absolutely do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we prepared it. We weren't sure,
Okay.
but we saw it Monday.
I saw it Monday and we're seeing last night. It came in the
We
email.
understand. You know, the formal conversations that with regard to the south property, the fact that that extension of the pilot was necessary for Fun City to move forward, but we know that formal documents have only been submitted to you recently.
And it's only the south that has been submitted to you. We're going to submit the north next
With the extension for the lease.
with the extension.
So there's 2 concepts. One is, as landlord, the IDA will ask for an extension of the ground lease. And then under the IDA, we'll ask for an extension of the pilot.
Yeah, we'd like both to be brought to parity so they expire at the same time.
Yeah.
Again, that makes it much easier to facilitate a sale.
I do a lot of IDA work. It's a very complicated site, so totally understand it's very complicated. It's not,
And there's a financial impact on the
Right.
city,
all right.
right? So,
You will have to look at everything, Rick.
absolutely.
So you're stating before Fun City, when we move forward, they want us to.
Well, that was the
They're
spirit of the
They're
lease.
moving forward on good faith. We've
Yeah.
had good conversations about, the need to give them some predictability in the taxes going forward. So, that is, they decided to move forward based on informal conversations, but we definitely need to, codify that with extension.
And so my question is why a 14 or a 15-year extension, right? Because I'm sure they don't have a 14 or 15-year contract with you, but they want us to kind of commit to this amount of time when they don't have to commit to our city and being here for that amount of time. And I get it, right? You know, but us as a city kind of making that long-term commitment when we don't have that type of long-term commitment also doesn't necessarily benefit the city.
Their lease does
Yeah.
go out
Yes.
to 2045.
Yeah.
So that 14-year extension, which currently runs to 2031, would bring them to 2045 in coordination with their lease.
That's right. We're only asking for the extension
For the
the term of that.
They break their lease like other people
Well,
break their lease,
obviously that-
right?
Well-
You know, I mean, but then our commitment on on pilot doesn't get to leave with that type of breaking of their lease.
It does not,
It's not
that
connected.
pilot incents a new person to come in.
Doesn't 75.
Okay. Comptroller Morton, do you have any questions?
Well, I don't have any questions, but I do have, I mean, I think that we have to do a complete financial analysis on this.
Yeah.
To see what that is. So, yeah. And, you know, in concert with what we also are doing, with, urbanomics and looking at some of our pilots and me recognizing, of course, that, you know, this doesn't have anything to do with, the school migration stuff that we're doing, but it does have a lot to do with, you know, the taxes and the UTEP and how we are modeling, how we are going forward, on this. So, I was looking at the, pilot agreement to see what was kind of the schedule of, pilot payments and see what we're talking about, because we're extending it out, and then what does that mean? You know, before us. So we got a lot of work to do because we've got a few things that are happening. We got a few cylinders that are turning around. How do we determine what is a, you know, what is a reasonable pilot and pilot payments for both us, the city, as well as for, you know, those who are asking for the financial assistance. So, yeah.
And
So we may have to sort of back because again, if we've got to do this analysis and somebody's got to, you know, call for it and pay for it to be done too. So we've got to, we need to look at all.
Yeah, I sent this to Victoria Stores already. The application requires GDC to indemnify the IDA, so there's no cost to the IDA. If Urbanomics needs to look at it also,
Well, they'll pick it up as part of,
Yeah.
what we're doing.
we'll have everyone look at it.
And when I refer to the city, I refer to the whole city. I know we're not government over the school district, but we are one tax base,
Right.
right? And so the tax base itself.
We'll definitely get those wheels in motion.
Yeah, we've worked with Victoria before, so if she wants to have a working session or call to understand
Yep.
job numbers, metrics, build outs, all that stuff.
If Dr. Morton, as the treasurer, you want to be involved, let us know. We can set that up.
Definitely won't be involved.
Okay.
Yeah,
won't.
so we are talking about it because we need some other metrics. I mean, there's some other things that was clearly is absent from this pilot that we now are also looking at, that we want to make sure that we talk about things like, you know, jobs and how do we regulate that on a monthly basis, clawback clause.
I'll get an email out to everyone with the developer to set up that call.
Okay.
Good.
Sounds like a plan, but it sounds like we gotta just move expeditiously because I think you all
Okay,
want an answer, and we don't want to necessarily have a business that's trying to come in, not to come in because we're dragging our feet on it, so.
in the application, it already says that they're not necessarily hiring local. So,
I think they have, that's.
I mean,
only
you
the
might have some specialty management, but,
That's,
you know,
yeah, that's what is not necessarily local. I think local, they're hiring within the radius that is required.
100 miles.
100-mile radius, including the general contractors that are banging it out now. And, you know, I would say here that our interests, together with your interests, are somewhat aligned. Here, you know, we want to see a thriving facility and an active economic development facility corridor.
And the interested bidders are very strong retail investors who invest in managed retail properties. So it would,
And you
you
said
know,
that was JNL,
JLO is the
Well,
market.
that's the.
Yes.
the-
Real estate broker.
Yes.
the brokers, okay.
That means, you know, retail is not what GDC is most known for. It's more residential.
Hmm.
So it would be transferred to a company that specializes in retail investments and management.
Okay.
Any old or new business?
Old business, we talked about it, urbanomics. So, you know, we executed the contract agreement with them. We're trying to, coordinate a, kickoff kind of discussion, with the, committee, and them, which is basically just.
Oh, we can go.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we can go. Okay, thank you,
Thank you
sir.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Which would be basically to convey to them, you know, what pretty much was in the scope of work. But to also, hear from them about what are kind of the next steps. I sent them all the information on the pilots. They requested all of that, so that they would have that ahead of time. And then, so the next thing is to try to schedule some time. Once I talk to Stephanie, I already have, Chris's availability, and then, just to have, and Stephanie's, so that we could at least have that initial conversation so that they can hear from us in the city, and they can also hear, from the school board in that initial meeting. They ask whatever questions they have, and then they're gonna come back, and then they will start to engage with the board on whatever it is that they may need as they go forward. At least that's Tina's approach to it. She felt she needed them. She wanted to have an initial meeting prospectus with a small committee, and then move forward. So.
And, you know, as we're working with Urbanomics, you know, I would want to challenge them to make sure that they're using current trending data on family and family size and birth rates and things of that nature. I mean, I've seen, it shocked me the other day, and I don't know why it was shocking. I guess it was shocking to see it on paper. I have a 33-year-old daughter, and of her 10 best girlfriends, 2 of them have children, right?
Yeah. Those numbers are getting
And so there is, and when we're talking about, let's look at what the current structure of Mount Vernon is. We are 89% Black and brown. And the report came out the other day that said by 2030, that Black women ages 25 to 44, 30% of them will have children, you know, women of childbearing age, that only 30% of women of childbearing age by 2030 in the Black community will have any children.
Wow.
Right, which is a lot. That's shocking. And so, you know, as we go forward and we're using multipliers, and as we go forward and we're looking at, you know, builders who are coming in, and a lot of these builders are planning for more studios and more 1-bedrooms as opposed to 2 and 3 bedrooms. You know, I think a lot of that has to do with the trend. I mean, you know, Malcolm, you're 34? And if you look at your friends, it's not a lot of kids, not a lot of kids at all. So people are just not planning to have children. And with the economics of this country, with, you know, the challenges, when we grew up, we were saying, oh, we don't know if we want to have kids. Seems like there's just war and war and war. But now we are in the middle of a generation that's seeing war and seeing social challenges, and they want to travel and have a dog, but they don't want to have children. And so, and then that's just not my daughter's friends. As I look at my friends, you know, many of us don't have grandchildren. So it's not something that seems to be a passing trend. And so as we're looking at what the multiplier rates are going to be, I want to make sure that all of that is informed by what we see nationally. And Mount Vernon closed 3 schools, but New Rochelle is closing. Yonkers has closed the school and said that they might be closing more schools, right? And as we've talked about across the state of New York, how many schools have closed. And I'm having more and more of those conversations. It's just going in line with the trend. Initially in Mount Vernon, as you know, we always initially go to, well, the reason our schools are closing is because our schools aren't good or the academic outcomes aren't good. But in school districts that have higher educational attainment and higher academic outcomes and graduation rates, they're seeing a decline in their enrollments too, and that's just because there's a decline in the birth rate. And so, we initially went to finding cause and what was to blame for a decrease in our enrollment. But then as we expanded the lens, I think we've seen that there's been a decrease in enrollment across the board, regardless of the socioeconomics, regardless of the ethnicity, and the demographics of different communities. It's the social trend. And we might be higher on that social trend, because we are Black and brown but so want to make sure, and then also realizing that if you use high multipliers in the beginning, then that's going to be a challenge to the project. So finding the right multiplier and then also making sure that in our UTEP, if they go above the number that they say is going to be in there based on the multiplier, that the penalty is at the right level, or the payment that they have to make is at the right level to kind of discourage people from just trying to lowball the numbers. So.
Can I ask you, because you mentioned that, I think a few meetings ago, that like we have that safeguard, if they do breach that they will have to pay X per student, but that's not in the current UTEP. Was that in the Q West agreement?
Yeah.
No,
Both of them.
It's in anything that we've adopted, right? So
UTEP? Because I
Yeah.
looked for that.
it's
I
absolutely,
mean, because you mentioned $25,000.
no, it's in the UTEP. Yes.
Oh, but I
Yeah, but we changed it into
looked at a lot of UTEPs.
So I think in about 2021 or 2022, when we redid our UTEPs, or when we created a UTEP or revised it, we did put that in there as part of it, and it's in the agreements.
Okay, yeah, so if it's in the UTEP, then that covers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So there's a safeguard. So, I don't want us to develop analysis paralysis over the multiplier.
Yeah.
When we also have at the same time, the safeguard, if, that's like people when they say, oh, I'm going to rent Brush Park or something, and they say, oh, we're just going to have 75 people.
Right.
If you're coming with more, then we're going to deal with you.
But I think, but just to make sure we're clear, we did override that for QS. We negotiated something different with QS.
We did.
Because we negotiated an upfront
The fee.
payment, then we negotiated a even different fee in which they have to pay. They actually have a progression fee no matter what, even
Right,
if they don't go
right.
in the QS.
So there's the policy in the UTEP. One thing that might be a good idea to add is a procedure for enforcement. So how do we check then on the developer to make, like, are they going to be required to submit something?
Yeah.
Annually, is that, yeah, so these
I
are.
think that should be in the pilot agreement, but but you're right.
Yeah.
We need to make sure, because it's similar to those pilot agreements that was done kind of in that 14-15 period where 14-15, maybe it's 16, Richard, I think was mayor, when they did them and they put some conditions in there for them around employment, and they were supposed to certify.
You certify.
Right? But there was nothing in it that said how you enforce it.
Yeah.
Right, in it.
And that's
So you
the
gotta make
word,
sure.
because we're talking about long periods of time. So you don't know what's going to happen 10, 15 years when none of us are
The
here.
enforcement's hard because there's laws and there's courts.
Right.
They take a while, but there's fallback provisions, revert, all these things, but they get complicated.
Right.
It's better to keep it on the path, but, payment to work with us. That's what we hope.
Yeah, so, and one of the easiest ways, right, to do that is the school board. The
I'm
school-
trying to get them to do the same thing, put a set of procedures to follow up
Yeah.
that really aligns them. Yeah.
You should be able,
Get it, so.
you should be able to take the address
Right.
of places that have pilots
Right.
and run a registration.
Well, one of the challenges with that I found is that the address listed in the piling agreement isn't necessarily the residential address that is for the school registration. So we found that with Laporte, remember, right, when we did that, it it was coming up with no kids. And then it turned out we had the wrong address because the address of the developer used for the development was not the same as the street address used for the people who lived in it.
Right.
So we just have to make sure that it's
And-
solvable problem.
Yeah,
Solvable.
that's low hanging fruit.
Yeah, exactly. But it took a second. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So, yeah.
This is the development address and this is what the address is. And so you put both of them in
Right.
and you.
Put the project, even the name of it, whatever it is.
Right. So these are all for just procedural things that we need to keep track of.
But you get lost otherwise.
Anything else for new or old? All right, report of agency council, I sort of gave the issue on 229 and GDC, so nothing from me. The one issue with the next meeting is Thursday, September 11th, which may be an issue for the mayor, so we've changed it to 10th, if that's okay, just so everyone's available that day.
Well, it wasn't just an issue for me, or myself and the controller, I believe will be in Nikon.
Yeah, that's the night.
Oh, okay. September 10th is good, though?
You're out that week, though. Isn't it multiple days now?
Yeah, that's our whole week.
Yeah.
Yeah, up in Lake Placid, God only knows.
Nice spot.
It's a nice
For the
spot.
record, New
And
York
then-
Conference, it's the New York Conference of Mayors and Municipal Officials, so, you know.
Do you want to make it the next week? 18th may be bad for me, but. When do you go up to Lake Placid, do you know?
We leave that Monday, well, it's that week.
Oh, it's the whole week, okay.
It's that.
We're gonna have a forum anyway, so let's change that next meeting date.
Weeks, I'm on the board.
Hmm?
That be there the whole week, 'cause I'm on the board of the finance thing.
Oh, for night.
Want to try Wednesday, the 17th?
New York Municipal Finance Society.
Wednesday, the 17th, does that work for the next meeting? You good?
I'm good. So,
I have no problem with that.
10 a.m. Wednesday, the 17th of September. We're going backwards? Where are we today? I forgot.
Wait a minute, Wednesday the 17th.
Of September.
It is the week of Nikon.
Well, that's the week of NICO?
Yeah.
Then the 10th may work.
Paul, let's just check it.
Hey, we don't have to notice, no, okay, next meeting date to be determined. We'll work with staff to get the right date.
Is the 15th through the 19th.
That's good work.
And I'll probably have to be virtual.
Yeah, well, we can't all be virtual.
No, we gotta have 3 here, yeah.
If we do it on the 10th? Everybody else is virtual?
Nikon Paul,
I'm out.
Nikon Fall Training School is September 15th through the 19th. So I guess the 11th. Okay.
Yeah, the thing we changed, because of Nikon, I think was the, was DOE. Yeah.
Would be September 11th is our regular scheduled meeting, yeah.
You wanna keep it on the 11th or you wanna make it the 10th? We were just thinking for the, you know,
We can make it on the 10th, if, you know, should we have to do any things around September 11th?
right, September 10th,
Be
10
virtual
a.m.
for the 10th, yeah, for that week, because I'll be out. Yeah,
Okay, so-
that week, and then I'll be in
Is
concert.
there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
adjourn.
That's
Second, all in favor?
I.
Thank you.